Oh hi, I didn't see you there. You come in at the right time. Let me just unclip. Today I'll be teaching you how to make this. Well, not this, I just bought this today because we filmed what you're about to see 3 weeks ago. I just couldn't be bothered to edit it until now. So this is a quick sourdough tutorial, not quick, not easy, but hopefully you'll be able to get results like this. And obviously I'm about to Photoshop an image here, right here. Yeah, so I hope you give it a chance and tell me how it goes.
For this sourdough tutorial, you're obviously going to need a sourdough starter. You're going to want to feed it equal parts of flour and equal parts of water the night before you want to bake, and then again in the morning. The recipe I'm following today is for 4 loaves, but this scales linearly for the number of loaves that you want to do. So we start off by measuring out the flours. Then we want to measure the water. In the next phase, we will mix the water and the flour together and leave them to rest for 3 hours. This is called the autolyse. After 3 hours, your flour and water will have had enough time to create strong gluten structures, perfect to trap the gases produced by the yeast in the sourdough starter, which we are mixing right now into the dough. Let the dough rest for 30 minutes and then it's time to incorporate our salt. Wet your hands to prevent the dough sticking to your fingers and then work the salt into the dough. Lightly water a surface large enough to knead your dough, and when you're all ready, it's time to dump out the dough onto the bench. The next step in the process is the slap and fold kneading technique. In this technique, we want to pick up the dough, slap it on the counter, fold it over itself, and repeat the process until you get a smooth, springy dough. Every time you slap the dough on the counter, turn it 90 degrees and repeat. This should take about 15 minutes. Rest the dough in a covered bowl for 1 hour. Oil a working surface, and now we're going to cut the dough into the number of loaves that we want. Using a bench scraper, fold the dough in on itself, and when you're ready, cut it into the desired number of loaves. Aim for having loaves of similar size, but as you're about to see, I definitely fail at this. Now comes the most fun and satisfying part of sourdough baking, which is called lamination. In lamination, we stretch the dough as wide and as thin as possible without it tearing. Then fold the sides towards the center and then roll the dough up into a cylinder. Place the dough into a lightly oiled dish and cover it with cling film. Repeat this process with every loaf and then place them all together in a proving oven at 30 degrees, or if you don't have it, at room temperature. The oven with the light on also works, but your proving times might be longer. After an hour in the proving oven, the dough will have relaxed and grown. We will do a coil fold to increase the surface tension of the dough. By now your loaves should be light and airy, they should have doubled in size, and they are ready to be shaped into a loaf and placed in a banneton or a bowl to rest overnight. Dump the dough onto a floured surface. I find that rice flour prevents sticking best. Lightly spread the dough out using your bench scraper and your hands, and then when you're ready, fold in the sides and then once again roll it up into a cylinder. Use your hands to stitch the sides together, and then when you're ready, flip it around and continue stitching, increasing the surface tension of the dough. Generously flour the top of the dough and then place it in the banneton seam side up. Use extra rice flour to coat the sides of the dough and protect it from sticking as it rises in the banneton. Cover tightly with cling film and place in the fridge overnight. On the morning of day 2, take the loaf out the fridge, sprinkle the surface generously with rice flour and invert it over baking parchment paper. Using a sharp razor blade, score the top of the loaf to help it predictably rise when it's in the oven. Doing this at an angle will help give the loaf that characteristic lip of a sourdough loaf. Place a Dutch oven inside your oven and then preheat the oven to 260 degrees static. In this case, I'm using a cast iron skillet, but you can use any type of Dutch oven. This will help trap the vapor from the cooking process and give the loaf an incredible crispy crust. Place the loaf in a Dutch oven and return it to the oven. After 20 minutes, turn the oven down to 210 static, and after an additional 10 minutes, take the lid off the Dutch oven. Cook for another 20 minutes and then turn the oven off and leave the door of the oven slightly ajar. This will help make the crust extra crispy. Once the bread is cool enough to handle, take it out the oven and let it cool completely on a wire rack. If everything goes well, you should have a loaf that has risen beautiful in the oven, has a thick, crispy crust, and a beautiful open crumb structure.